What's up, boys? I am back from making new Nintendo fanboy sold cringe videos because I have no idea what video should I upload next, because I can't find new salt videos because the notorious Nintendo fanboy still doesn't upload new content. But I found his community post that he's planning to stream again, or maybe he's just sitting for 30 minutes or 1 hour to watch Nintendo Direct or something. But mostly Nintendo right now doesn't have a new Direct yet for upcoming games and Nintendo exclusives. But here I am, I have actually found a new salt video by the one and only Harman Smith, the most common Nintendo fanboy that we all know. So what does Harman Smith done today? Well, he decides to make another awful video talking about Resident Evil 4 Remake was disappointing. So let's get straight into this shit so fast.
Hello everyone!
Okay, so first of all, where the hell is he? Usually Harman Smith goes start recording from his stupid basement all the time, but sometimes he records on a couch like a couch potato, or even sometimes he goes on a home gym and it looks like disgusting and it never cleaned up for years. Even the notorious Nintendo fanboy do the same thing from Harman Smith, like he does start recording on his shitty bedroom with unsorted Nintendo stuff on his room. Even his room has many Nintendo stuff, especially Harman Smith too. Anyways, let's get back onto the video.
Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of Eye of the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, Lore and Fray, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon.
And I said it too many times, nobody cares about your goddamn books that no one buys.
What happened? Like, what did I just play?
Basically, Resident Evil 4 Remake. What the hell are you laughing about?
Like, Capcom out of nowhere decides, like, okay, we're going to drop a Resident Evil 4 remake demo. You can play this right now on everything that isn't a Nintendo console.
I mean, Resident Evil Remakes isn't available yet on Switch. Resident Evil 4 Remake revamps the 2005 version because the controls are very unresponsive way back a few years ago. So they decided to remake the game and profit more money, I think.
So, being curious, I went ahead, downloaded the thing, got it running, booted it up, played this game, and holy shit, was it terrible.
I don't think he's pretending that he actually played the game and he's just like, wow, this game is terrible, I prefer the old version instead of the remake one. The irony about this is the fact that he's being salty when Resident Evil 4 Remake demo was dropped. But then again, he's a Nintendo fanboy and he prefers the 2005 version on Switch, and nobody likes the controls from that old game, and the controls was very unresponsive.
Like, reprehensible. Like, first and foremost, I think this really needs to be said before we really, dive deep into, like, everything this game does wrong. But first and foremost, and I think the most important thing, something that we should not forget in regards to this kind of thing, especially as we go into, like, Resident Evil 5 Remake, which I'm sure is inevitable, Resident Evil 4 did not need to be remade.
Resident Evil 4 needs to be remade because the old version has unresponsive controls, according to many gamers out there. Basically, remaking classic games is a huge step for the developers. Even Dead Space Remakes nails perfectly from the original version. Hopefully this remake would be good like the Resident Evil 2 remake has been released a few years ago.
Like, looking at these up-resed visuals, looking at, like, these modern textures, looking at this, like, the new design decisions, like, the game honestly looks worse.
Some modern game graphics look sucks. I'm looking at you, EA. Besides the devs from Dead Space Remake, they perfectly nailed it. Resident Evil 4 Remake has the best graphics that been ever made, unlike the old version where the graphics looks bland. The controls are very unresponsive and the models aren't even too realistic that much, except the monsters. Yeah, it's really horrifying, and sometimes low-poly monsters look scary like Cry of Fear, a horror game that was released a decade-old by a small team, Team Sykes Claw,
on newer hardware than it does originally. Like, the new up-res graphics made it look worse, right? It doesn't have the stylized visuals, it doesn't have the animation, it doesn't have the fluidity of motion, it doesn't feel natural in a way. Like, we are at that point where games 20 years ago can look better than games being made today. Like, if I wanted anything from Resident Evil 4 Remake, like, I wanted the same exact game with, like, more beautiful, realistic textures and maybe some additional content. Like, my idea for Resident Evil 4 Remake was always like, yeah, let's give Ashley a full campaign. Let's give, like, Lewis a full campaign. Let's give Ada, like, a full campaign. Like, a full, like, canon campaign. Like, Separate Ways is not campaign. It is not like canon.
If you imagine the remake would be the same mechanics with unresponsive controls and the same graphics, that would be a massive fluff. Like, take a look at GTA Trilogy Remake. The controls are the same thing from the old version and the graphics is atrociously terrible, the textures looks horrible, and slaps the entire fucking source code into Unreal Engine, and the devs be like, it's good to go for the release, there are 0 bugs onto it. This Nintendo fanboy is completely deranged.
Like, you can, like, do a lot of things with these, like, characters that are in the game, right? There is, like, additional content you could do with the original idea without changing much. Like, Kirby Return to Dreamland Deluxe is a really good example of that.
Return to Dreamland Deluxe has no fucking DLCs and it's just a Switch port from a failed console known as Wii U.
That game added a lot of content without really changing the way the game plays at all. Like, the core experience, it runs better, it looks better, but at the end of the day, it's the same game just with additional content. And that's exactly what I wanted from Resident Evil 4 Remake. But instead, what we got is modern Resident Evil 4.
Listen, Harman, the old version of Resident Evil 4 is the worst version because the remake is coming on the way within a few days. I mean, it's out already. And they decided to fix the controls from the remake instead of putting the unresponsive controls like we had way back in 2005. Everyone hated the controls, even the Steam or PC version has the same unresponsive controls too, because of mouse moving and it sucks. And now we have the remake version has better graphics, fixed the unresponsive controls, and mostly captures the classic version like the previous Resident Evil remake games released back in 2019.
We got, race swapped Hunnigan. We got, Leon speaking Spanish. We have, like, just cringe dialogue moments. We have like, Leon, just poor storytelling in general.
It also applies the same thing from the old version, kinda. And hopefully they would change the level design where Ashley gets kidnapped by the cults and it is one of the worst levels ever back in the day. But in my perspective, I never played Resident Evil 4, but mostly the game itself has many issues from the controls and especially had no autosaves. Hopefully the remake would add the difficulty where the autosave is disabled and you can save from the checkpoint area, like in Resident Evil 7 Madhouse difficulty.
Like, more cutscenes than gameplay.
More cutscenes from the game is truly boring as hell. Even Max Payne 3 has longer cutscenes and basically where you can finally play the game after the cutscene ends, which is very disappointing. I played Max Payne 3 and the game is a bit okay and the bullet time is way too fun than watching a longer cutscene.
I really found myself thinking, playing this, that, like, wow, this is more than just a bad remake. This remake just fundamentally does not understand what made the original compelling.
I am not repeating this statement when Harman thinks that Resident Evil 4 Remake was a bad game. It does not capture the old version of the game, like the controls are very unresponsive. I have said this earlier in this video and I am not repeating this statement like a fucking broken plate.
Not only from a gameplay perspective, but from a storytelling perspective too. Like, it understood that it was a game that was designed to be fun, right? Like, it really embraced the fact that it was a Nintendo exclusive and put, like, used that superior technology to its advantage to create, like, a stellar gameplay experience. But with this remake, not being a Nintendo exclusive, it's more cutscene focused. It's more focused on, trying to impress you with, like, Leon being like, ooh, I'm so apprehensive about the way I hate the way my life turned out. Ooh, I'm still traumatized from Raccoon City for some reason. I don't like this remake continuity. It just feels so unnatural to me. Like, more people need to acknowledge that these remakes clearly are in their own continuity entirely.
I mean, have you seen a real remake from a very very old game like Mafia 1 was released a decade ago, and they decided to remake the game from 2020 and it looks pretty good. And the voice acting is better than the old version because the audio was terrible way back then, even the storyline was a bit changed, but it's not like the reboot revised story like Modern Warfare 2019 whatsoever.
And I think it's a lot more obvious with 4 than it is with 2. I think a lot of people, especially younger players, don't really know a whole lot about 2, about all the intricacies about, like, which route is canon and, like, what actually happened in the plot of 2 and things like that. Resident Evil, like, has always been, like, kind of retcon heavy. That's been the case since, like, the second game, but, like, it's gotten really bad with these remakes. So much so that, like, playing this remake, I really have no desire to actually play the full game.
Again, the remake storyline is just the same thing from the original.
It just feels like whatever technical improvements the game might have had over the years, it just comes all together to create an objectively inferior product. There is nothing coming from this demo that makes me think that, like, I should go out and buy the full game. I thought Resident Evil 2 remake was pretty solid for what it was. The people who said it was like the best remake ever are full of crap. But I liked the first part of Resident Evil 2 remake. Well, I liked the police station segment. It was not bad at all.
So you like the remake version of Resident Evil 2, but you don't like the remake version of Resident Evil 4. This guy doesn't make sense either, or maybe he's just a delusional or being salty about the remake.
So I was really hoping for the same level of quality from Resident Evil 4 remake. I really was thinking that, like, maybe they could do something with this, but no, they remade a game fundamentally that did not need to be remade. They focused on all the stuff they absolutely should not have focused on. They changed things that didn't need to be changed. They did this, they did that.
I have actually said this before when Harman is arguing about why the remake is awful because they changed the graphics and the controls from the game itself.
They just need it feels like hopefully this is going to be like the last time Resident Evil is relevant. Like 7 and 8 I think were, like, pretty unpopular.
Resident Evil 7 and 8 has positive reviews when the game was released. Even Resident Evil Village was memed a lot before the game came out. It was popular back then when these games came out, and Resident Evil 7 has additional content or DLCs.
I think the series has kind of kept itself alive through these remakes over the past couple of years. Like, it's the only time I ever see anybody excited about Resident Evil is whenever they're remaking an old game. And in this case, like, 2 wasn't good to begin with, not that great. And then 3 was a disaster, and 4 does not need to exist.
So let me get this straight, Harman. You were saying that Resident Evil 2 Remake was a great game and Resident Evil 3 Remake was bad, but the game itself has mixed reviews if the game is really good or it's not worth to play this game because it's terrible. But then you were saying that Resident Evil 4 Remake shouldn't exist because no one wanted a remake of Resident Evil 4 like what happened in The Last of Us Remake, that no one needs a remake because we played the game before. Technically, Resident Evil 4 needs a remake because the old version was successful way back in 2005, but there are some glaring issues like the unresponsive controls that never be fixed for years, and now we are having the best experience to play Resident Evil 4 with good graphics and better controls.
Because I think, like, they could have easily just spent their time making 3 remake. Took their time, like, remaking that game instead of just botching it.
I mean, Resident Evil 3 Remake has mixed reviews because the game was too short that you can beat the game with 5 hours, and there's nothing wrong with it. Either your review the game is good or bad.
Really brought everything together in preparation for making the new Resident Evil games, right? But no, instead they just decided to milk it. They threw out 3 remake in the state it was in, and now they're throwing out 4 remake.
Capcom is not like Activision and EA. Capcom is not milking money for Resident Evil remakes. The reason why they remake those games is because those games are too old and they decided to remake those games with modern graphics and better controls.
And YouTubers and shills are, like, excited for this, but these are the same people who were, like, trying to tell you that Devil May Cry 5 is one of the best games ever made, right? These are the same people, like, trying to tell you that Multiversus is great, or that like Hogwarts Legacy is a 10 out of 10. Like it's just Elden Ring is what is the best selling game ever made. Like
Oh my god, he's trying to apply the same thing from Elden Ring because those games were too good and it is popular. Those remakes are not like the same thing from Elden Ring because it sold dozens of millions. But there's a remake that has been notoriously bad, it's the GTA Trilogy remake, where I'm not going to repeat the statement that I said from this video.
these people can't be trusted in any way, shape, or form. And with that being said, it feels like to me that this should hopefully lead into people being more skeptical of Remake.
I mean, have you seen the disaster of GTA Trilogy remake where everyone's hyping about it and there are no videos about this remake is not what you think it is from the trailer itself if someone make a video out of it since 2021. And now they decided to refund the remake because it looks terrible and they just put the game's source code slapping from Unreal Engine. And basically you calling those YouTubers that this remake is going to be good, calling sales? In fact that you are the Nintendo corporate seal to pay $50 for the Switch Online and buying full price for the exclusives. And thinks that Nintendo is better than any consoles and Steam Deck is garbage because of emulation support. This guy is completely delusional.
I don't think a remake of Resident Evil 5 would be nearly as successful as this.
If Capcom decides to remake Resident Evil 5, then Chris is still buff, or maybe they would fix the character design. Who knows?
Like the main reason people are excited for this is the same reason they were excited for Final Fantasy VII-R. It's the brand name, right? Like, oh man, these third-party developers have finally gotten away from those evil Nintendos.
To be fair, Final Fantasy VII Remake was a soulless cash grab, but mostly the game itself was really good and changing the game into an action RPG instead of turn-based RPG Persona style.
From that evil corporation, Nintendo corporation. So now they can make the game they always wanted to make, and the game they wanted to make was garbage. You know, like.
I mean, Nintendo is completely terrible. Like they're abusing the copyright system and striking thousands of Nintendo soundtracks from YouTube is completely insane. And worstly, they're striking down ROM hacks, and worstly, the Smash Bros. Melee tournament got cease and desist because they're using a modified version of Melee called Slippy, which is a program that you can play Melee online, and many more what Nintendo did terrible things a year ago.
And now, now that I've actually played the game, I have no reservations at all, saying that like, yeah, there's 100%, there is no chance, absolutely none, that I will pick this up. No interest at all. It just plays complete garbage.
So basically, Harman Smith calls Resident Evil 4 Remake is garbage because it is not the same from original version where it has terrible controls and bland graphics. Anyways, I really don't care about the rest of the video, so this is the end of the video. Although someone made a video about this by King 552, go check it out by the way. Please consider subscribing to my channel and liking this video as well. Please don't send any hate for Harman Smith and LTTVYT, it's really unneeded. Until next time, signing out.